Krishna Krishna. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mayi Ki Jai Jamuna Mayi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktavinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, and welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024 in New York, and today we're picking up with Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 8, text number 45, in which Narad Muni is giving instructions to Dhruva Maharaj. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Prasada Bimukam Shashvat Prasanna Vadanikshanam Sunasang Subruvang Charu Kapolang Surasundaram. The form of the Lord is described herein. The Lord's face is perpetually very beautiful and pleasing in attitude. To the devotees who see him, he appears never to be displeased, and he is always prepared to award benedictions to them. His eyes, his nicely decorated eyebrows, his raised nose, and his broad forehead are all very beautiful. He is more beautiful than all demigods. Purport. This verse clearly explains how one has to meditate on the form of the Lord. Impersonal meditation is a bogus invention of modern days. In none of the Vedic literatures is impersonal meditation recommended. In Bhagavad Gita, when meditation is recommended, the word matparaha, which means pertaining to me, is used. Any Vishnu form pertains to Lord Krishna, because Lord Krishna is the original Vishnu form. Sometimes someone tries to meditate upon the impersonal Brahman, which is described in Bhagavad Gita as avyakta, meaning unmanifested or impersonal. But it is remarked by the Lord himself that those who are attached to this impersonal feature of the Lord suffer a very troublesome task, because no one can concentrate on the impersonal feature. One has to concentrate on the form of the Lord, which is described here in connection with Dhruva Maharaj's meditation. As will be apparent from later descriptions, Dhruva Maharaj perfected this kind of meditation, and his yoga was successful. Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Here Prabhupada translates this section of the verse by saying, the Lord's face is perpetually very beautiful. So sometimes we may see faces even in this world that appear very beautiful, but they're not perpetually very beautiful. They may be beautiful in a certain light or from a certain angle or at a certain time in that person's life, but they're not perpetually very beautiful. The Lord's face is perpetually very beautiful. And in this, in the verse, the word prasada abhimukham is there, and he translates it in the word for word as always prepared to offer causeless mercy. The word abhimukam means, it refers to someone who's facing forward, inclined towards, or basically going forward. Abhimukha, one's face is pointing that way. So you could take it that It's another way of saying he is so inclined to offer causeless mercy due to his nature. We were recently discussing the concept, Maharaj was discussing it. I had asked him about this idea of causeless mercy, which here comes up again. And Maharaj very satisfactorily described how the Lord is constituted that way. And that's again, this comes up because we tend to think of things in terms of cause because we live in the world of cause and effect. But when you come to Krishna, Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam, you've reached the point from which all causes emanate. It's just the way he is by his very nature. His qualities are co-eternal with him. They're not caused by some external factor, except his own will. It's just his desire. And a hardcore materialist might drill down into that topic and ask, how can there be a cause without any other cause? But I was thinking, if there wasn't, there would be no basis for any existence. Nothing would be reasonable. You'd have Mayavad philosophy or worse, or total speculative material relativism, neither of which lead to happiness for anyone. And if we want happiness, which any honest person will say yes, just accept that's just the way he is. Prasada abhimukam, always prepared to offer causeless mercy. Prabhupada also says here that in describing various forms of meditation, specifically Vishnu forms, Matparaha, he says any Vishnu form pertains to Lord Krishna because Lord Krishna is the original Vishnu form. So when he says pertains, the word pertains means it's appropriate or related to or applicable to a certain thing or person. But that means that everything is related to Krishna, especially the Vishnu form. But the problem is that people don't accept, materialists don't accept, people in the material world don't accept descriptions of Krishna. And why don't they? Namam duskritino mudha prapadyante narada maha mayaya paritya jnana asuram bhavam ashrita. Krishna has them all categorized. He's psychologically analyzed this type of personalities. But the descriptions are there, like the descriptions are here. Narada is saying, this is what the Lord looks like. So Dhruva Maharaj knows whom he's looking for. And when the Lord appears, he'll know who it is. All these descriptions are there in the Shastra. They're consistent with one another. And any honest, scientifically minded person has to examine the evidence, or he's not honest. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, we'd love to hear from you on this verse if you have some comments.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Kiranjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Shapadantika. I liked your point that someone's face may be beautiful for some time, but not perpetually. The contrast here is vivid. The impersonalists are absolutely against form, against form. Form is Maya. But here, the form is explicit, the form is particular, and the form is gorgeous. So the gorgeous, attractive feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described here. And in many places in the Bhagavatam, in detail, down to his toenails, the Lord is described. So just the opposite of the impersonal conception. And the personal conception is rich, attractive, fulfilling, everything you could want. And the impersonal conception is nothing. It's void of everything. It's the absence of. So here, and the devotees relish these descriptions to hear about the Lord's form and to be reminded of the Lord's form or to meditate on the Lord's form. These were all the privileges, or it's a privilege for the devotees, and for the non-devotees, it's just off limits by the limits they themselves have said. Hare Krishna.
Jai Mars, thank you very much. Some things in the chat here. First, from Vijay Krishna Prabhu, he says, if the Lord appears never to be displeased, my question is, how do you explain that he did fight the battle of Kurukshetra? Wasn't he angry and displeased with Duryodhana when he did it?
Lord is certainly displeased. He didn't appear for Lord Nrsingadev as Lord Nrsingadev for nothing. He was certainly displeased with Hiranyakashipu, more than displeased. But here it's for the devotees. Prabhupada sometimes said that for the devotees, he's the reservoir of pleasure, and for the demons, he's death personified. So for the devotees, he's always pleasing. Even Lord Nrsingadev was very pleasing for Prahlad to see, and was always pleased with Prahlad. But for the demons like Hiranyakashipu, he was fearsome. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Morai Gupta Prabhu says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, in the Bhagavad Gita, 12th chapter, Krishna mentions those who worship the impersonal aspect. What does worship mean in this context?
Just getting my book so I can reference the verse. Pariyupasate. Upasana, approaching. Let's see how it's lost here. Yeah, to approach respectfully. So they have great regard, great sometimes awe, reverence for Brahman. Oh, they have so much, they stand in respect of the impersonal Brahma. So they're dedicated, devoted to the impersonal Brahma. So in that sense, worship. It's not that they do arti to the impersonal Brahma, but they seek to approach impersonal Brahma. They feel humble in regard to the impersonal Brahma. So that's Pariyupasate. Sarvatra Chintya Cha Kuta. So when we read the description, he's all pervading, it's greater than the greatest, and so on. Sarvatra Achintya, inconceivable. So in that way, they worship or revere the absolute truth, even though their conception is impersonal. So in that sense, they have a kind of, you can say, bhakti. We wouldn't say bhakti, but some semblance, you can say, of bhakti. They have devotion to the absolute truth, even though they don't know what the absolute truth is, or they regard it in its impersonal feature. Therefore, Krishna says, ye prapnuvanti mam eva. Finally, they come to me, but after so much trouble. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Saraswati Devi says, Pranams Param Puji Maharaj and all the Vaishnavas on this auspicious day of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada's disappearance day.
Evo.
Jai. She says, I am not sure how to understand the statement that the absolute supreme personality of Godhead is untraceable in the Vedas, and in quotes, Vedeshu Durlabham. Also, in CC Madhya 2.843, it is stated, just how perfectly beautiful is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's form, perfect measurements of all bodily parts, called Nyagrodha Parimandala.
Untraceable in the Vedas, Durlabha, with great difficulty, because in the Vedas we don't find these kinds of descriptions given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Anuraniya Mahato Mahiyani, smaller than the smallest, greater than the greatest. And there are other descriptions, but they only, what would you say, indicate the personality of Godhead. They point to the personality of Godhead, Isha Vashamidam Sarvam. Everything belongs to Isha, the supreme controller. But who is that Isha? What are the features of that Isha? Are not described the way we find them here in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in that sense, difficult to know from the Vedas. Trigunya Vishya Veda. Even the Vedas mostly dealing with Trigunya, advancement and gradually Dharmartha Kama Moksha. So there doesn't leave a lot of space for understanding the personality of Godhead. But the Bhagavatam is dedicated to the personality of Godhead.
And she says, thank you, Maharaj. And let's see here. I think that's it for our comments on this verse so far, unless there are more that have been hiding there. I should take the opportunity to welcome Bhakta Arjun from Georgetown, Guyana, who's been attending the classes, but I want to formally welcome him and say that you're certainly welcome to read and chant. Just send the host a comment in the chat box, and we'll certainly put you right on the schedule. Thank you for being here. Hare Krishna. And Madhupati Prabhu is with us today. I was going to ask him if you'd like to read our next verse, which is text number 46.
Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Bhagavatas Jayadvaita Swami. Tarunam Ramaniyangam Aruna Usta Ikshanadaram Pranata Ashrayanam Nrimnam Sharanyam Karuna Arnabam. Translation. Narad Muni continued, the Lord's form is always youthful. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed, free from defect. His eyes and lips are pinkish, like the rising sun. He is always prepared to give shelter to the surrendered soul, and anyone so fortunate as to look upon him feels all satisfaction. The Lord is always worthy to be the master of the surrendered soul, for he is the ocean of mercy. Perfect. Everyone has to surrender to someone superior. That is always the nature of our living condition. At the present moment, we are trying to surrender to someone, either to society or to our nation, family, state, or government. The surrendering process already exists, but it is never perfect because the person or institution unto whom we surrender is imperfect. And our surrender, having so many ulterior motives, is also imperfect. As such, in the material world, no one is worthy to accept anyone's surrender, nor does anyone fully surrender to anyone else unless obliged to do so. But here the surrendering process is voluntary, and the Lord is worthy to accept the surrender. This surrender by the living entity occurs automatically as soon as he sees the beautiful, youthful nature of the Lord. The description given by Narad Muni is not imaginary. The form of the Lord is understood by the Parampara system. Mayavadi philosophers say that we have to imagine the form of the Lord. But here Narad Muni does not say that. Rather, he gives a description of the Lord from authoritative sources. He is himself an authority and is able to go to Vaikuntha Loka and see the Lord personally. Therefore, his description of the bodily features of the Lord is not an imagination. Sometimes we give instructions to our students about the bodily features of the Lord and they paint him. Their paintings are not imaginary. The description is given through disciplic succession, just like that given by Narad Muni, who sees the Lord and describes his bodily features. Therefore, such descriptions should be accepted, and if they are painted, that is not imaginative painting. Om Kyanutimangasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshulmitan Yena Tasmai Shri Grive Namaha. So the darshan which the Lord gives to Dhruva Maharaj is the form of the Lord is described by Narad Muni here, that is always youthful and each and every limb and part of his body is properly formed, free from all defect. Right. The Lord is infallible. He's perfect. He's perfect. So all his limbs, his form is perfect. And all attractive. Right? It's all attractive. So one needs to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No, Srila Prabhupada in the Puppet mentions that everybody as such wants to take shelter. Either they take shelter to a society or a higher nation or family or to their senses, right? But their taking shelter is not perfect, but shelter taken to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Through disciplic succession, authoritative sources, is perfect. Narad Muni's description of the form is perfect. It as is free from defects, and he is personally observing the form of the Lord. So the form described in disciplic succession, as Srila Prabhupada mentions, to a painter is not imaginative painting because he's getting the instructions from an authoritative source of how the Lord looks like. And based on that, he's making the painting. So following the descending process in disciplic succession is the most authoritative way to understand spiritual science. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Maharaj, would you like to comment here?
This Sharana and Sharanya the nature of the living entity, well, in the second canto, where different categories are enumerated. The final category is ashraya, because all of everything rests on the personality of Godhead. All the universes are resting on the hoods of Ananta Shesh. Everything, all the energies, everything's resting on the personality of Godhead. Nivasa Sharanam Surhit is the resting place for everyone, and he's the best friend of all living entities. So sometimes we take shelter of someone and they, what should we say? They exploit us, they use us, and abuse us. So they're unworthy to give shelter. They're unworthy to give shelter. But we need shelter. That's the nature of the living entity. He's Ashrita Tattva. The Lord is Ashraya Tattva, the shelter of everything, and everything else is Ashrita Tattva, that which is in need of shelter. So the living beings are in need of shelter. Without shelter, we're lost. Yes. We could talk about it a long time, but that's the nature of the living being. He's looking for a dependable shelter, even material. What is that? Prakritim mohinim shritaha, asurim rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shritaha. Even the demons, they may scoff at the idea of taking shelter of God, but they take shelter of the material energy. Prakritim mohinim, the bewildering material energy. Prabhupada said they take shelter of me and I'll kick you. That's the material energy. But they do. They take shelter of their fallible soldiers. They take shelter of their home or their country. For those in the magazine industry, it's just an aside. The magazine is called a book. We have this kind of a book or that kind of a book, a sports book or a news book. That's that kind of magazine. And magazines like Better Homes and Gardens and Architectural Digest and so on, they're called shelter books. They're called shelter books. Our home is our shelter. Man goes and works all day, and then he comes to the shelter of his home. But the shelter is also not able to give adequate shelter. Sometimes the shelter is physically destroyed, they bomb it or what have you, and you have to pay for the shelter for pay. And if you can't pay, the bank takes away your shelter. So that kind of shelter is what's the word? It's tottering. It's unstable. But the lotus feet of Krishna are the perfect shelter. They're eternal. The Lord himself is able to give shelter to all living beings. It's described here. He's very kind to his devotees. Suridam Sarvabhutanam, very kind to everyone. So Sharanya, the person unto whom it's worthy to surrender. Person to whom it's the person who's worthy of our surrender. Karuna, he's merciful like the ocean. So Pranata Ashrayanam, he's the right shelter of the surrendered. When we're ready to surrender, then when we surrender to the personality of Godhead, then the Lord, as Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita at the end, takes charge. the Lord takes charge and gives shelter. Hare Krishna.
Vijay Krishna Prabhu writes, the expression imaginative painting reminds me of Srila Prabhupada categorizing the paintings of his disciples as not different from windows to the spiritual world. My question is, to what measure are such paintings worshipable?
Yes, they're worshipable. The painting of Krishna, that Krishna can appear in different forms, in jewels, in metal and wood, and one form is in paint. So the painted form of Krishna is identical with Krishna. One time, yes, therefore the paintings were never to be kept on the floor, for example. The artist would put them on some cloth or on some support, because the painting is worshipable. The spiritual Krishna is worshipable, his form, his qualities, his abode, his pastimes, his devotees, they're all worshipable. And they appear in the paintings. So the paintings are also worshipable. Srimad Bhagavatam is worshipable. And traditionally, the Bhagavatam class begins with the worship of the Srimad Bhagavatam, flowers and offerings of respect. So the paintings and the Bhagavatam are not different from Krishna. They're all worshipable. Aradhya.
Murari G. Prabhu writes, do we leave the spiritual world because we don't want to be sheltered?
Well, to get into that sort of, what should we say? Mental shelter means relationship. When we take shelter, we admit that there's some superior, and we're subordinate. So the mentality is, why should I be subordinate? Subordinate, why subordinate? And why, yes, so why take shelter of? Mekam Sharanam Praja, why do I have to take shelter of you? Why can't others should take shelter of me? Why should I take shelter of you? So it's this separatist mentality. Hare Krishna.
Saraswati Mataji writes, I was hearing a class by Srila Prabhupada who states how we are children of the wealthiest father, but we prefer to loiter in this material world because we are accustomed to suffering, pain, and disappointments, and think that is the intelligent way to use our minute independence.
Yes.
Murari G. Prabhu writes, thank you.
Any further comments or questions here before we move on? I was going to see if Panchatattva Prabhu would be willing to read our next text, number 47. And I think you can go ahead, Prabhu, if you're ready.
Vivatsankam Ganashyamam Purusham Vanamalinam Shankha Chakra Gada Padmaya Abhivyakta Chaturbhujam. The Lord is further described as having the mark of Srivatsa, or the sitting place of the goddess of fortune, and his bodily hue is deep bluish. The Lord is a person. He wears a garland of flowers. and he is eternally manifest with 4 hands, which hold, beginning from the lower left hand, a conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. Purport. Here in this verse, the word purusham is very significant. The Lord is never female. He is always male, purusha. Therefore, the impersonalist who imagines the Lord's form as that of a woman is mistaken. The Lord appears in female form if necessary, but his perpetual form is purusha because he is originally male. The feminine feature of the Lord is displayed by goddesses of fortune, Lakshmi, Radharani, Sita, etc. All these goddesses of fortune are servitors of the Lord. They are not the supreme, as falsely imagined by the impersonalist. Lord Krishna in his Narayan feature is always four-handed. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when Arjuna wanted to see his universal form, he showed this feature of four-handed Narayan. Some devotees are of the opinion that Krishna is an incarnation of Narayan, but the Bhagavat school says that Narayan is a manifestation of Krishna. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshumalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Gurudasa Jayadvaita Swami Iti Namine. Yeah, we're followers of the Bhagavat school. Ete Changsa Kala Pungsa. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Indriyari Kulante. Anyway, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the source of all incarnations. They're all emanating from him. Indraya Vyakulam Lokam. Mridyanti. Yuge Yuge. These various incarnations, plenary portions, parts of plenary portions, they're all coming from Krishna. And the Lord's being described here as having this mark on the chest of Srivatsa. It said in the Vaikuntha planets, the Lord alone has this mark, although the residents of Vaikuntha, they all have their four-armed forms. Krishna's form, or Narayan's form, is the only one with this particular mark, Srivatsa. That is his distinction there. And Krishna is described as always male. Of course, in this world, we have our conception of what is male and what is female. But the principle of enjoyer and enjoyed is the definitive description of who is male and who is female. The feminine counterpart of Krishna, Radharani, is enjoyed by Krishna, and Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He's the enjoyer, and we all are the enjoyed. In that sense, we're all Prakriti in terms of our spiritual quality, because we are meant to give pleasure to the supreme personality, Krishna. We are not enjoyers per se. We think we're the enjoyers. We try to imitate Krishna to become enjoyers in this material world, and we have to experience an existence fraught with difficulty because we're assuming an inappropriate, unnatural, unconstitutional role. And therefore, in order to do this, we have to accept one material body after another and meet with so many difficulties because we're not in our proper state. We're not in our proper consciousness trying to be the enjoyer. We, as Guru Maharaj was mentioning, we can't imagine being subordinate because our conditioned thought is that subordination means being exploited, being mistreated, being abused, being neglected even. But on the spiritual platform, subordination and service rendered is full of ecstasy. And the personification of that ecstasy is Srimati Radharani. And those who serve Srimati Radharani, the Vaishnavas in service to Krishna, they're all full of ecstasy. That subordination is sublime. The subordination we see in the material world is just the opposite of that. Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, would you care to speak further on this?
There's a sort of a modern trend to be egalitarian about the gender of the personality of Godhead. Why not female? Why male? Why the male pronoun? Why he? Why this patriarchal imposition on the absolute? Why not she? This all comes from, Prabhupada nails it, impersonalism. We don't really have a clear conception of Godhead. We think if there's some personal identity, that's sort of a, what should we say? Words are not doing well for me today. Sort of analogy or some sort of a imaginary idea, but the absolute isn't a person. But then, all right, if we're going to personify Godhead, then why a male person? Why male? Why male? Why not female? So this is there. In the world, everything is like fluid. Everything is mutable. So why do I have to be a man? I could be a woman. Why do I have to be a woman? I could be a man. Why do I have to be a man or a woman? I could be both. Why can't I be everything is just as you like it. You just according to your feeling, it's what you feel yourself to be, and God is what we feel God to be. And it's all equally valid, and so on. So that's impersonalism. God doesn't really have an identity, but we can imagine whatever identity we like. But here, Govindamadi Purusham, he's Purusha, male, and the female is also there, included in the absolute truth, sometimes even given greater regard than the male. But the distinction is there, and the sort of what's the word, fuzzying out of the identity of God is just from a poor fund of knowledge, and envy and other things thrown in. Hare Krishna.
Saraswati Mataji writes, I recall reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the mark of Srivas on the chest of the Lord is the resting place of Lakshmi, but that Radharani is Krishna's heart. In fact, she lives in his heart. Ananta Sesh Prabhu writes, gender dysphoria in a woke world. Praveen Prabhu writes, argument. In a relationship, both the man and woman are enjoyers. How does sex/gender determine who is enjoyer? Since both derive pleasure in that relationship, there isn't a distinction that a particular gender is only one enjoying and the other doesn't. So goddess is also enjoyer.
Yes, but the enjoyment is by occurs differently. Prabhupada uses this term enjoyer, and we need to understand it carefully because yes, there's enjoyment for the female also. It's not that the male enjoys and the female suffers. The female also enjoys. Sometimes Prabhupada uses the more particular term predominator and predominated. More particular for this question. The man enjoys predominating, and the woman enjoys being predominated. Even if we can take it outside of human life, the bull and the cow are different. The bull predominates, and the cow is predominated. That's, we don't find that the cows run after the bulls. The bulls run after the cows. So it's not just an imaginary distinction or a distinction that comes about by culture or something of that nature. It's there in nature itself. There's the predominator and there's the predominated. And both enjoys, the man enjoys conquering, and the woman enjoys being conquered. And I given the example that if you look at romance novels, not a practice I recommend, but if you just glance at the covers, you can understand the theme. There's always some strong man who's, overwhelmed woman, and she's surrendered to his power, his valor, his manliness, so on. These themes are there, and carefully, discerned by the marketers of such books. They know the mentality of the readers, so that and the woman enjoys the having attracted the man so that he wants to overwhelm her, conquer her, and so on. And of course, she's conquered him that way, so it gets complex. But still, she's the attractive force, and the male is attracted. And so the man is attracted to, of course, he's attracted to conquer the woman, and then he spends the rest of his life paying for her happiness, for her comfort, for her children, her everything. So, of course, therefore, the material nature, everything's illusory. The man imagines that he's conquering, but in fact, he's being conquered. So it all gets complex, but still, there is such a thing as male and female. It's not just a social construct.
Murari Gupta Prabhu writes, "We enjoy by being enjoyed."
Yes. And the devotee, he surrenders. He enjoys being enjoyed. He enjoys serving. In the material world, Prabhupada points this out also, who wants to serve. But for the devotee, it's a pleasure. It's a, yes, he feels happy to serve. Even in the, yes, even in the material context, sometimes we're proud to serve. We're happy to serve. I was in an elevator one time, and there was a military man, ex-military. He said something about being ex-military, so I asked him, "Where did you serve?" And immediately, he was ready. He was off and running, talking about where he'd served his country. So there was a kind of pleasure. Yes, I served. I served. So that, and we get that also in social service. A person feels, yes, I've served these poor people. I've served my community. There's a pleasure in service. There's a pleasure in service. So that finds its ultimate expression in service to the Absolute, service to Krishna.
Saraswati Mataji writes, one person said Srila Prabhupada stated that women like to be raped. That makes no sense and is a crime. So if this is true, in what way to understand?
Well, that's, of course, a large topic. Let's just see. No, first of all, what he said is not that they like to be raped, but that they like a man who's very expert at rape. There's some distinction there. Rather than go into the whole matter in the remaining 4 minutes, you can go to my website. I think it's on my website. Let's see. There's an essay I wrote on the topic, and I'm not sure if it's on my website or not, to tell you the truth. And where was it? It's on, there was a BBT site where that essay appeared. Trying to remember where it would be. It appeared that the heading for it was Tough Ones, and it was under, let's see, I can find it for you very quickly. Let's see.
Praveen Prabhu may put it there. An article called BBT turns down GBC recommendation, will not add explanations to Prabhupada's books.
That's probably different. Let's see. Well, I confess that I don't know where it's, oh, let's see. Looks like it's there on my website, jayswami.info. And yes, if you search for on the site for expert at rape, you'll find it. jayswami.info and search for expert at rape.
Panchatattva Prabhu writes, I regret that I have but one life to give for my country.
We have news for you.
Thank you, Maharaj. And with that, we're ready for Kirtan. Panchatattva Prabhu, are you available and able to lead Kirtan today?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajacharya Astotra Sata Shri Shrimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajacharya Astotra Sata Shri Shrimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se Goho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Govinath Shyamkund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Transcendental Disappearance Day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur Tirobhava Mahotsava Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Gora Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Panchatattva Prabhu. Thank you, everyone, for being here, for your participation, questions, comments, listening, everything. Especially thank you, Maharaj, for giving us your association. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Bol. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Panchatattva Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Sharad. Thank you, Madhupati.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Thank you, Krishna Kantiya. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai.